Hey guys, welcome. Luke here. Welcome to part 2 of buying your very first kite setup. So in this part, we're going to talk about new versus used equipment, and we're going to talk about pricing and also just some general sort of recommendations for going out there and buying your first kit. So first off, let's talk about choosing between new and used equipment. I would say that the number one sort of reason that you wouldn't buy something that is new is mainly just based on price. If you're sort of not worried about money so much, then new equipment's always going to be better. It's always going to be brand new. It's going to be in great condition, obviously, and you're going to have the latest things. So that's going to be great because the kite development and the technology continues to upgrade and get better and better and better. So every year is just that little bit better than last year. So you'll definitely appreciate it if you have the money to do so. If you're more on a budget or you're just getting into it and you want to try things out, used equipment can also be great. And in some ways, I would actually recommend it because your first kite gets a bit trashed, right? You crash it all the time, you drag it around on everything, right? While you're trying to work these things out. So it's actually not a bad idea to start with some used equipment because that way you sort of wreck the first one and then you can go and buy nice new stuff afterwards when you're really into it. So let me give you a couple of tips for what you might expect to spend on your first setup. So when it comes to price, let's start with what you might spend if it's brand new. So I'm just going to talk in US dollars. So if you're in euros, it'll be about 20% cheaper. If you're in Australian dollars or Canadian dollars, it'll be about 30% more at the time of making this video. So when we're talking about a brand new kite, typically your kite, if in brand new condition from the shop, it's going to range from about $1,200 to $1,500. The bar, a control bar with lines set up like this, will range from about $500, but this particular one, or a rear line trim bar, which are a bit more expensive, might be about $700. That's US again. Now that comes with the bar and lines, and it connects to the kite, so you have to buy both of them obviously to operate the kite. Then you need a couple of other things. So you'll need a pump, you'll need a harness, and the pump, you could probably get a cheap one, but call it 50 bucks. The harness, you can spend, they range in value, but these right engine ones we really like, and they're sort of around the $300 mark. You might get one for less than that. Depends. You can see this is a hard shell, and that's what we like to ride. Normally they're a little bit more expensive. I'd say you're looking in between $200 and $300. Don't quote me on all of this, but I'm just giving you a rough price guide. Then we need a board. So brand new twin tip board might range from sort of $800 to $1,000, and same with a strapless board. You might be up for the similar amount of money, maybe a little bit less. After that, we can of course save some money in used equipment, and so what I would say is if you buy a setup sort of 1 year old, you'll probably save about 30% on the price. So if we're looking at a kite and bar, in a really nice kite and bar, we've spent about $2,000 on it, then maybe $1,500 to $2,000, then what we'd be looking at there is maybe bringing it down to like $1,300 the next year. So like imagine you're buying a used car that used to be brand new. As soon as it drives out of the shop, it starts devaluing. So the first couple of years, they really lose value. And so you can probably pick up a pretty good bargain about 1 year old. From that point on, it doesn't really get a lot cheaper. But if you really are on a budget, I would say that the best way to really buy a setup is to actually buy the whole setup off somebody. So to get a combination of, it comes with a kite, bar, pump, leash, maybe even a harness, and it's all in a big package, and then you might be able to buy, it might bring the cost down a little bit for you. I would say that as a general rule, we don't recommend that you buy anything more than 4 years old. A couple of reasons. One, the kites are getting better and better every year. Two, it might be really worn out, and you don't really want to end up stuck out in the ocean or have problems. The problem with that is the kites are a little bit more expensive, of course, and so even our mates, sometimes they say, oh, I nearly bought this kite, or I wanted to buy this kite, it's only $100, and they're all excited about it. But I feel like what you really do if you buy really old equipment like that is you just sort of throw that $100 away, because you'll never actually use it, because the kite won't fly as well as the newer stuff. Now, I know that some people are probably going to say, hey, you know, I had a 2008 kite and it's my best kite that I've ever owned. Great, sure. Look, there's probably plenty of examples of some older model that was a great kite. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but typically speaking, if you're out there in the market trying to find gear, your best bet, particularly if you're new and you don't really know what you're buying, your best bet is to get something 4 years or newer, and that way you'll stay in that sort of that newer range. Things like the chicken loops, you know, all of the safety systems, what the lines are made out of, how light they are, how durable the kites are, all of that is in the newer equipment, and so you sort of buy into that. Now, I would say that if you get that full kit and you sort of look around that 3 years old and you shop really well, then you might get the kite bar, lines, pump, sort of leash for about $1,000. And so your whole setup, sorry, for about $1,000, including your harness. And so that's sort of a bit of a range that you could aim for. Let's talk about buying your used board. I would say out of everything here, the best thing to buy used is a twin tip board. The twin tip boards are they feel a bit indestructible, really. They're built really strong, and the shapes are, you know, they're pretty standard. So once you sort of get a twin tip, it'll probably work. Obviously, do some research into what size and shape you want, but I think that if you're going to buy something used, it should be the twin tip board, because they are about that $1,000 mark, brand new. But you could buy a pretty good one for $200 that's a few years old or even older, and it will still really work for you. So twin tips, I'll definitely recommend you buy used. Have a look in the classifieds, and let me give you some tips for how you'd buy used equipment. You might want to go to your local shop, see if they sell used equipment. You might want to go to a school, or maybe the school where you got lessons yourself, because they might be selling all of their equipment every year, so you get that sort of 1 year old equipment. Obviously you want to make sure it hasn't been used and used and used, but they might have some really good deals for you as well. If you want to buy it privately, absolutely fine to do, but first do your research on the kite model, the kite shape, and, you know, learn about it. Just Google it and learn about what that kite's good for before you go out there and buy it, because that will give you information based on, like we talked about, you know, what are your goals with kiting. Make sure it's the right shape, the right size, so you're not buying something that you're never going to use because it's too dangerous or it doesn't work for you. The same can be said for your control bar. A good question to ask is the control bar the same year as the kite? So if you're going to go and buy a used kite and it says it's 3 years old, comes with a bar, make sure the bar is the new bar that came with the kite originally, and they're not just throwing in some old bar into that deal as well. So that's definitely something worth considering. Also, of course, the overall condition of all of the gear. So you want to be just really pull the stuff out of the bag when you're about to buy it. Maybe you even want to pump up the kite, make sure it holds air, or at least confirm that with the seller, make sure it holds air and it's in good condition. Ask them, has this kite been repaired? Is there any major repairs? You might be able to see big patches on the kite. Typically a little cut. So if we look here, if this just had a little cut there that had been professionally repaired, I wouldn't be worried about it. It's not really going to make any difference to your kite flying at all. But if it had been teared all the way through and all around the leading edge, then maybe you might still be fine. In most cases, if it's professionally repaired, it will still be fine. It will be like stronger than ever on that repair. But the thing is, it might change the stretch pattern. That's sort of one of the things to look out for. If it's had a major repair, maybe it's slightly tweaked in some way after that. So you could still buy it, but just make sure you get a good price on it. Other than that, I think that you want to look at your bar, your chicken loop condition, your lines condition. You just want to make sure everything's in working order before you get out there. And so, yeah, look, that's, I think, some general tips. Let me give you a couple of last recommendations. It's always a good idea to go and check out a demo day. So there might be a demo day where a shop has a lot of different kite models out. You could go and give it a go, see how they fly, and that might give you an idea of what sort that you like, maybe what brand that you like, and that way you could even look at used equipment in that same model, and it will be probably very similar. Also, your harness, I would actually say that The harness is something that is really good to buy brand new. And the reason is that your harness really needs to fit you. This is a huge determining factor on how long you can spend out there if you're comfortable. And so you might want to go to a shop, or you should really, I wouldn't buy a harness online, go to a shop and try them on. Because they're different shapes, they're slightly different shapes, they're different fits. You want to crank them up, make sure they're nice and tight, and say, you know, this is how it's going to be for the next 3 hours while I'm out there. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable. So a new harness is actually a really good investment in my opinion. Even if you're going to buy used everything else, you can go to the shop, get yourself a brand new harness that fits you well, you'll be comfortable. You save your money on your twin tip, you know, you're going to save good money on your board, and you might even have an old surfboard or something that you want to ride to save money there. Spend a little bit extra on a good harness so you're nice and comfortable, and then you can go and try and find those deals on your kite, or maybe you're going to buy it all brand new. It depends on what it is that what you're up for. So look, that's it guys, that's it for this video. Hopefully that gives you some tips. If you have any more specific questions, put them in the comments. We'll fire back an answer there so we can answer the questions. Hopefully that was helpful. Luke here, and we'll see you in the next video.